What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Student Housing Insight Podcast, where we are putting you in touch with the people who bring student housing to life. I'm your host, Wesley Dees. Well, guys, it's February. Did January feel like it was 6 months long to you? Because it did to me. But hey, the stage is set. We've got the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. Congrats to the LA and Cincinnati fans. And congrats to all of us for the halftime show that's planned. Honestly, I can't wait to see that. And we've got the Winter Olympics starting up, if that's your thing. And then I guess that means we've got the NBA All-Star Weekend coming up this month as well. NASCAR starts back. And then we get into March Madness. So fun stuff. But hey, you guys did not tune in to hear me talk about sports and music. But hey, you know what else is happening this month? 2 student housing conferences. And we're going to talk industry conferences today. But before we do, let's pay some bills and talk about our wonderful sponsor that has been with us this past year, Vector Travel. For those of you that don't know, I'm not just the host here at SHI, but I'm also actively involved as a consultant in the student housing space with my firm, Providential Student Housing. One of our services is asset management, and we've had some incredible success stories over the past couple of years. Vector Travel has certainly helped us with those successes. So what does Vector Travel do? Well, if you are familiar with student housing, you know that once you get past August move-ins, and then you start to get a good idea of what your vacancy is going to look like for the rest of the year. And you know that vacancy is it's going to be baked in pretty much for the rest of the academic year. At the same time, the short-term rental market is extremely popular. Mainly due to apps like Airbnb and VRBO. But, college towns are highly sought after on some of those platforms because there's usually a shortage of hotels, and between sporting events and other university related business that happens, there's a demand for short-term rentals, and most student properties are actually kind of the ideal fit. Most of them are, not all of them. I used to try and rent vacant units for festivals like South by Southwest in Austin. And, it was such a cluster. And then you had, legal and tax reporting that you had to add on it. It started to feel like, the juice was not worth the squeeze. And then I came across Vector Travel. Vector takes all of the hassle and headache out of that process. You split the revenue with them, so they're only getting paid if your property is being rented out and you're getting paid. They understand student housing as well, and they'll tell you up front if your specific property is not going to work for their program. So go check them out at vectorstays.com/SHI. They've got a special deal that they've put together for our listeners there. All right, we've talked about sports, we've talked about music, and now we've talked about short-term rentals. Let's talk about conferences for the student housing industry. So a couple of weeks ago, I posted an interview on our YouTube channel that I did with Greg Jasper from Stafford Barrett, which is a brokerage firm based in College Station, Texas. And they do a lot of student housing transactions. A few years ago, Greg had this idea to host a conference in College Station to talk specifically about student housing in all the markets across Texas. I think he actually started it just because he wanted to talk about opportunities within College Station, but it has evolved into all markets across Texas. So not just College Station, but Austin, Waco, Lubbock, Fort Worth, Denton, San Antonio, San Marcos, Nacogdoches, Houston. I don't even think that's half of them. Texas is a big state, and there are a lot of college markets there. And, so fast forward a few years and throw a pandemic in the middle of it. And this little conference has turned into a decent size event. That event, the Texas Student Housing Conference, is happening next week, February 9th and 10th. I'll be attending. And if you're going to be there, please say hello. I'd love to talk to folks that or listening to the podcast. So, in addition to that conference, there is also the I'm in Student Housing Conference coming up later in February. That's out in Dana Point, California. I won't be there. Me and the family are going to see Mickey Mouse in Orlando that week. So, but if you're going, have fun and let me know how it goes. Then, of course, in May, we have the biggest event in our industry, which is the Interfaith Student Housing Conference in Austin, Texas. That's put on by our friends at Student Housing Business Magazine. It's a big deal. Typically over 1,200 attendees, a big exhibit hall. We've got innovator awards that are done at that. There's a lot going on. Then the NAA integrates some student housing sessions into their Apartmentalized Conference, which is the biggest event in the multifamily industry. Then Nmhc also has a big annual student housing conference, typically in late September, early October of every year. And then, of course, we just had LeaseCon TurnCon that was also done by Student Housing Business back in December. Several years ago, I actually did a video, which is still on our YouTube channel, where I break some of these conferences down and talk about who should go to each one and what you can expect. And I was already thinking about providing an update to that because it's like 4 years old and there's more conferences now. And anyway, and then I got a LinkedIn message from Chris Basinger. I hope I'm saying that right, Chris, with Topanga Management out in California. He recently joined them as their VP of Ops and stated he appreciated the podcast. So I replied and asked him if there were any topics he would like for us to cover. This was his response. He said, "I'm newer to the industry. I found your show before the NMHC conference in Southern California. That was helpful in giving me the lay of the land before the event." He said, "I haven't been able to attend many of these yet, so some recommendations for professional development would especially be useful for me." So I thought, we should definitely talk about conferences. So Chris, this episode's for you. So now I don't think you really want to hear a diatribe from me on each conference. So I'm just going to hit on each of these briefly. We'll call this the 6 conferences in 6 minutes. So let me set a timer and we'll get going. All right. So while I'm setting on this timer, we're going to hit on the following conferences. We've got IMN Student Housing 360. We've got the Interfaith Student Housing Conference, Biznow Student Housing. We've got the NMHC Annual Student Housing Conference. We've got LeaseCon TurnCon, and then I'll also talk about Apartmentalize. I may or may not go in that order, but let's go ahead and hit the start button on the timer. All right, here we go. All right, so let's talk about IMN Student Housing 360 Conference, which is coming up at the end of February. I mentioned this is in Dana Point, out in California. Beautiful area and a venue. They started this back in 2020, right before COVID hit. I attended that one. It was okay for an inaugural event. Actually, it was great. I say it's okay. It was a good event, but it was an inaugural event. So there were, some things that I don't think everybody was quite tuned into. But what I like about this one is there is a lot of small investment firms and family offices located in California. And it seems to pull a lot of folks from those firms who are interested in student housing, but, they're not going to go to Austin for Interface or the East Coast for Biznow. And so anyways, it was great to see those folks. They're a professional conference group, so they have a structure in place for these events. At its core, this is a networking event for capital to meet the players within the industry. If you are a career student housing person, regardless if it's on the operations or the investment and finance side, you're just not going to get some incredible insight from the content that is provided. So I just want to kind of mention that up front. This is a networking event. So, but if you are on the biz dev side of your company, it's definitely worth checking out. If you are local to Southern California and you're a manager or regional manager type on the operations side, I would say it's worth attending if you want to get a bigger picture of the industry. But registration runs about $1,000, so make sure you make the most of it for sure. All right, Interface Student Housing in Austin, Texas. It's coming up this year in May. By far, this is the biggest event in the industry. 3 days that are just absolutely crammed full of sessions and roundtables. The event features the Innovator Awards Banquet, which is a lot of fun seeing folks being awarded for their hard work over the past year. The best part about this event is the fact that it is in Austin. Yes, Austin is a cool city, but that's not what makes it the best reason. It's the fact that many of the top operators are based in Texas and a lot of them in Austin as well. So it's easy to set up a lot of meetings, even if the person you're needing to meet with isn't actually attending the conference. So who should attend and why? Again, this is an event produced by a conference group, Interface Conference Group. So just like with IMN, they know what elements are needed to make this a good networking event. So what makes Interface stand out a bit more, in my opinion, is their commitment to this industry. It's not just once a year conference. Interface's sister company under the France Media umbrella is Student Housing Business Magazine, which is putting out weekly e-newsletters and a bi-monthly magazine featuring not only the transactions that are happening within the industry, but is also providing a ton of articles on topics impacting student housing, both on and off campus. And so I explain all of that because the folks at France really put a lot into developing the panels and roundtables to make sure the attendees go away having a clear understanding of what is changing the industry and where we are headed. So if you work in a position where it's your job to know where the student housing industry is headed, you need to be there. Regardless if you are in operations, brokerage, lending, investment, this is the one you have to be at. If you're a vendor that is, supplying a service or a product on a national scale, this is a must. All right, so now let's hit on Biznow student housing. This usually takes place in Philadelphia around June of each year. I love it because it's one day. For me, living in an area like Charlotte, I can fly in and out the same day. The content is not really focused around operations, but more so on the business aspects of the industry. If you're an owner, a developer, investor, lender, and especially if you're on the East Coast, I highly recommend this one. For operators, I would only recommend kind of biz dev and C-suite officers to attend. For vendors, if you rely on exhibiting, this ain't for you. If you are an account rep or you have a lot of close relationships, it's a great event to catch up with everyone and bump elbows. But from an exhibiting standpoint, it just doesn't really exist. Also, there are a lot of student housing companies based in the Philly area. So same as I mentioned with Austin, if you can't meet someone at the event, you probably can go to their office or meet them for dinner and, kill two birds with one stone. All right, so let's talk about Nmhc's Student Housing Conference. As a former operator and COO of a management company, this is my favorite conference. This conference is all about the content, the sessions. The sessions are focused on legislative and policy-related topics that impact all of multifamily, but specifically address how student housing will be impacted. If you're a member of Nmhc, you already know the value this organization brings to the industry. There's a lot of opportunity to discuss, how the industry should respond to matters and how we can develop best practices. Let's talk about who should attend. Anyone in an executive or a C-suite role should plan on attending at least once every 3 years. They do move it from coast to coast and middle of the country each year. And so that's one reason I say, once every 3 years, you need to make sure you're getting to this. As a vendor, I'll caution you, a few years ago, they scrapped the exhibit hall, and that was at the request of the members. I don't want to go into the details of why, but just like with Biznow, if you are a vendor attending this event, you need to have strong relationships and you need to have meetings set up in advance. Otherwise, you're just fishing with no bait on the hook. All right. Let's talk about site managers, and I've ran out of time, so we'll make this 6 conferences in 8 minutes. But if you're a site level or regional level manager who is looking to get a deep understanding of things, that the C-suite and the executives are talking about in our industry, this event will definitely provide that to you. Again, it's not the cheapest thing to go to, so make sure that you're making the most of it for sure. All right. So LeaseCon, TurnCon. So this conference is also put on by Interface and Student Housing Business. This past year, Student Housing Insight was also asked to assist in planning some of the event and promoting it. Had a lot of fun doing that. This event is focused on all things related to site level operations. It started out as just LeaseCon several years ago. And this year we said we should do TurnCon as well. And so we just ended up combining it. And so I think we may end up renaming it to something that's a little bit more simple. Who should go? Well, for starters, if you are in a C-suite or executive role for a management company, you need to not only attend, but you need to participate on the panels and the roundtables for sure. This is the event that allows those leaders to put their fingerprint on this industry. I think it's also, the best place for those leaders to be able to sit down with the vendors and collectively talk about the solutions that we need their companies to be providing to help us evolve as an industry. Outside of that, I would really say everybody involved with operations should be attending. This is a hybrid event, which means, in addition to it being an in-person event, it's also, on the second day, you've got all the sessions being streamed live. The sessions are also recorded and available after the event. So even if you miss a session, you were able to go back and watch it. So everyone should be attending this event. Get a license for each property, seat license for each property, and they can share it with their staff. This is something everybody should get to. For vendors, this is the event that I think can end up having the biggest impact, not only on your sales, but also your relationship with these management companies, because, it's not, we don't get a lot of opportunities to meet the actual decision makers that are in that mid to executive level positions within management companies, because they're busy people. They're out traveling to properties. A lot of them are working remotely now and not even in a corporate office. So this is a good opportunity for that. All right. Last but not least, Apartmentalize. This is the big annual event that the NAA puts on every year. It's not specific to student housing, but they do provide a student housing track. I would not so much characterize this as a conference as I would describe it more like the Mardi Gras for apartment managers. It's a huge event, and this is an event that will bring in, some type of top tier celebrity as the keynote speaker. It's a big deal. And vendors already know this is the biggest event they can be involved in, especially as an exhibitor. And because of that, they give away a ton of swag and prizes. And honestly, that's why so many people love to go. Just being honest. But who should go? Honestly, anybody will get something out of it. It's really just a matter of paying for it, right? It's expensive, especially if you're not an NAA member. A lot of companies reward site managers who hit all their goals by, getting them out to that conference. It's typically in June every year, which isn't always the best timing for student housing managers to attend. But if you are in an early market and you got all of your leasing done, maybe this is something you can convince your company to send you to. All right. I got all of that done. Sorry, it wasn't within 6 minutes, but I try my best. So, Chris with Topanga. Hope that helps. Chris had some other suggestions on topics as well that we're talking about internally, about possibly covering. So, and if you have any topics that you would like us to cover, either on the podcast or possibly in a webinar, please shoot us an email and let us know. You can do that at contact@studenthousinginsight.com. All right, let's shift focus on next week's Texas Student Housing Conference and what is on tap for it. Here's my conversation with Greg Jasper of Stafford Barrett. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Wes. Appreciate it.
So if you will, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and the work you do for Stafford Barrett, because most of our audience are site operators and work in kind of the mid to upper management. with operating companies, they may not see a lot of news out there about brokerage firms and what they're doing in the student housing space. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about, again, yourself and what you do for Stafford Barrett.
Yeah, I've been in real estate for over 20 years, a broker for about 18 now. I'm from College Station and started buying properties. I guess the first one was almost 25 years ago now, just little ones, and just kind of got interested in the business. And as I've just progressed in the career, we've just, I've gotten more and more into the purpose-built student housing. And that really started about 10 or 12 years ago. I had no idea what I was doing when I went to my first conference. I just thought, hey, this sounds cool. And I went and met some really good guys who I'm still friends with in the student housing business. And I just really enjoy the business itself. And obviously we're a full scale brokerage shop, and our team focuses on student housing. We do existing assets, and what I personally work on is development sites for developers.
So tell us a little bit about this conference that you've got coming up. The last time I heard something about it was last year. Had some friends that were going, and I think you guys had done it maybe a year or so before that, before the pandemic. And this was kind of the first opportunity everybody had last year to come together, because Interface was still several months off, and folks were wanting to get deals done. So last year was kind of the first time it popped up on my radar, but tell us a little bit about how this came about and what you guys are trying to do with it.
Yeah. So, I believe we were out in Manhattan Beach, I believe, for the Nmhc, 2018. And it happened to be that it was like me and some other Aggies there. Kelly Osborne was there from Humphreys. Barrett Kirk was there from Asset, some other guys. Jack B. Hunko's worked in the business for a few different companies. We were all just kind of like, man, maybe we should we were a lot of Aggies in the student housing world. And we said, man, maybe we should just do a little meeting. And then it kind of grew to a conference, and I had no idea how many people were going to come that first year. One of our first sponsors, that's still our sponsor, is Brett Necessary with MW Builders. Really helped us out with that original one, helps us out with everyone. And honestly, at one point, I didn't know if it was just going to be me and Brett having beers. Like, we had no idea, but because I don't put on conferences, I'm just a broker. I just really wanted to get people together and see kind of, what the College Station student housing market was all about. And we ended up having about 125 people. It was in April of 19. That was our first one. We called it the College Station Student Housing Conference the first year. And it went really well. We had some great panelists. We had a lot of commitments from guys that I was very happy that they came, and it was obviously a lot of Aggies, but we had some that weren't as well. Went off great. And then, so we planned for the next year, we're going to make it the Texas Student Housing Conference, since we were, as a brokerage firm, moving into other markets, covering markets like Waco and Denton and San Marcos and some others. And so we decided that we were going to do this Texas Student Housing Conference. And of course, 6 weeks or a month probably before it was coming off is when the lockdown with COVID hit in 2020. And so we had to delay it, and we delayed it like 4 times, I think, total. And we finally had it February of last year, and ended up having almost the same amount during that pandemic. We had close to 125 people. We had 125 people first year, had almost 125 people this last year. And we had a lot of people tell us, man, we would go, but our companies wouldn't let them travel for that kind of stuff. And man, it was great. We had everyone who came had a great time. We had some great panelists that came and joined us. And it was tough. It was right after that ice storm in Texas, where there was so much damage to all these properties. So we had like 3 or 4 panelists bow out. So we had to put new people in, and it was kind of chaos, but it was fun. We ended up having another good time. And now this year, we're already at that number that we've hit before, and we expect to have about 200 that we're looking at for this year's this year's conference. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people walked away from it last year. I know with some great contacts and some business moving forward, and so yeah, I think it's an interesting thing you guys are doing. The Texas market, all of the markets in Texas have been hot for some time now, just because they're great schools. Texas is a great place to be right now for a lot of different reasons, and I expect that's gonna it's gonna roll over into attendance for this one this year. Tell us a little bit about let's first tell our audience about the date. It's February 9th and 10th this year.
February 9th and 10th. We have just on the 9th is really just a happy hour, kind of a welcoming happy hour, and then people can go out to dinner wherever they'd like. And then the full conference is the next day. We've got 4 panels that we're doing there, and some different updates. We've got like a short legal update, some data updates, things like that, and then we'll have a happy hour afterwards too. So student housing people seem to like happy hours. So
yeah, they're great. We need all the happy hours we can get in student housing. So,
right.
What folks should be coming? Obviously a lot of folks in student housing do a lot of different things, everything from brokerage to facility management. And then of course you've got beyond the operators and the owners, investors, you've got service providers. Is this something that they've got opportunities to sponsor or exhibit in? Tell us a little bit about that.
So we're definitely a little bit more, we're based on, the development and owners, finance, things like that. But we do have some different management groups. The owners be talking a lot about management as well. So we kind of cover the whole gambit. And obviously it's based in Texas. Most of the people that come their company will be based in Texas because it's an easy drive to College Station, no matter where you're based at. And then we have, some other groups that are from out of state, but that do a lot of business in Texas and that are coming. We've had a really good response from the developers. I mean, I think I'm up to at least 12, I think 14, close to 14. I think we're at actually for different development firms that are going to be here. The owner side, we're getting close to that number as well, that are going to have, and I'm talking like some pretty high ups in this, executive vice president and above, principals, founders, stuff like that. We've gotten some really good responses. And so, yeah, anyone that, especially vendors, exhibitors who need to talk to those kind of people, we'd love to have you. Obviously, like I said, there's some different management personnel that will be here as well. I mean, it's kind of, it's just it's a Texas based deal. I mean, College Station is one of the largest student housing markets in the nation. Definitely the biggest in Texas. And so we just felt like it was a great place to do one of these conferences at.
Tell us a little bit about while we're talking about College Station, tell us a little bit about the venue and the host hotel and all of that.
Yeah. So the last 2 conferences we had were at the George, really great venue. They just have a small conference center. So they're tapped out at right about that 125 number.
Gotcha.
And that's why, so this year we're doing it at the Texas A&M Hotel and Conference Center that's right next to Kyle Field. It's bigger. It's a great venue to have these kind of things. They have conferences there all the time. It'll serve what we need there as far as the increased numbers, and plenty of hotel rooms. It's got restaurant in there, a bar, 2-story bar in there. That's really nice. And then of course, people want to, I'm sure some people will probably want to make their way to the Dixie Chicken at some point. So we'll be, working on that. So
great. So let's talk a little bit about the speaker lineup. This is, like you said, essentially a 1-day conference. You've got 4 panels that are teed up. Can you tell us a little bit about who's going to be speaking and maybe some of the topics?
Yeah. So we kind of tease them out. So I won't tell you all of them yet, but on the developer panel, a couple of the names that are going to be on there is David Pierce with Parallel. We just got the commitment, and all the marketing is actually going out today for Brent Little with Fountain Residential. He's going to be one of the developers on that. And then we're going to have a design, construction, architecture panel that we have. We have Wes Good from Kirksey that's on there, the president of Kirksey Architecture. They do a ton of student. We got Jonathan Del Cambre that's doing that's for BKV Group. He's going to be on one of the ones on there as well. Then we have a kind of what we call our. We haven't even named this panel yet. It's kind of a new one, but it's kind of throw a lot of stuff in there together. It's going to have a lot of finance stuff, tax things, cap rate sales, money, capital markets type stuff. One of the guys on that is Kevin McCune with Ryan LLC is going to be here. I mean, everyone I think knows Kevin. And then we've got a couple others we're announcing this week that are going to be on that panel. And then we kind of have kind of the owner / operator side. We're going to have Roger Phillips from Texel Housing Partners is going to be there. And then we're going to have, we just got this one too. We haven't even released this one yet. Maybe it'll come out about the same time, but we got Swapnil Agarwal with Nitya Capital, and Nitya is a huge, I don't know how many billions he's acquired now at this point. It's getting crazy, but he's moving into the student market, and he just acquired a property in College Station, and he is going full bore acquiring student properties. So we're pleased to have him here as well. So I think it's going to be a well-rounded, touch on a lot of different little topics. And, we're not trying to compete with an interface or something like that can really, we really derive, a lot of information from with each panel being broken down. I mean, we just want to get together, have fun and talk some student housing.
Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. And it's kind of perfect time of year, especially if folks are looking to put a deal together for, either from a acquisition standpoint or from a development standpoint, when they're starting to look at their pipeline, out to 2023, 2024, and even 2025 at this point. And so, and with interface being moved to May, I believe it's 7th through 10th, 6th through.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
That's about a month later than what it has been. So it's kind of a perfect time to get together and network and folks, kind of tee these deals up and see if it's something that, that folks are going to be interested in. So I think it's fantastic. Love what you're doing. And, Texas is so important to the student housing conversation in general. So the website is texasstudenthousingconference.com. You've talked to us a little bit about the hotel and the venue, but as far as registration, walk us through kind of the pricing and any other opportunities available for sponsorship and that type of thing.
Yeah. So we've kept the pricing, very reasonable. We staggered it up. I think it's sitting at $269 right now. And that includes, the happy hours, that includes breakfast, that includes lunch. We're not in the conference business, so we're not trying to, that's not where we derive our revenue. So it's more of, get people together, have a good time, get, some FaceTime with our clients. I mean, that was why I really started it was, to help grow our brokerage business. So we kept it, pretty light. There is, there's different sponsorships available. It's all on that website. There's an exhibitor sponsor as well. It has this new conference center. The last one didn't have a great place for exhibitors. The new one has a great hallway that basically everyone has to walk through every single time. So if you're thinking about doing, being an exhibitor sponsor, I think I don't know how many we're up to now. I'd have to check on that, but wherever it is, we have plenty of room for more exhibitors if they want to come. Like I said, it's a great venue. The way it's laid out is really good, so that you kind of get maximum exposure if you have a place.
Well, great. Well, I'm excited about it. I actually ended up holding my flight over the weekend because I got a couple other questions I want to follow up with you about as soon as we turn the record off. But yeah, I'm planning on being there. Super excited to see some of the folks that have already told me they're going to be there. and thanks so much for putting this on for the industry. I know obviously a lot of it's to bring, Stafford Barrett recognition and networking opportunities, but I also think it's serving a pretty big need that we have in the Texas market. So thanks for putting that together and seeing that need, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in February. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, obviously TexasStudentHousingConference.com is probably the best place to get information. I know there's a link to your email, but any other ways you want folks to contact you if they have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, they can, I think our email's on there, or they can send it directly to me. It's gjasper@staffordbarrett.com. I'll get it to the right person. Or LinkedIn, wherever you want to get in touch with me. It's all on there. So, but I'll be happy to answer, any questions. I've been, fielding calls from just all kinds of people just wanting to know, what we're doing. And, so I'm kind of used to it by now. So.
Well, fantastic. Well, Greg, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Wes. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Well, thanks for listening to the end, everyone. Glad you made it. If you would like more info about Student Housing Insight, go to our website at studenthousinginsight.com. We'll actually be announcing here shortly about some smaller conferences that we're going to be doing. We're calling them market meetups, and they're going to be basically really kind of confined to just looking at a specific market. We're going to be doing Chapel Hill. We're going to be doing Knoxville, Charlottesville, Virginia. Yes, we'll be doing Austin, Texas. But anyway, we'll have more information at our website as we end up firming up the dates and everything with those. Well, guys, thanks so much. Tune in next week. We've got a great podcast coming up with Miles Worth. All right, guys, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.